Book 1, Chapter 1. When he woke up, Tyre thought he was hallucinating. If he had to make an example, it is as if his field of vision was cut in half and each half had a different view. After experiencing such a weird problem with his vision, an even more shocking problem came up. He couldn't recall his own name or any of his past. Everything was like a blank sheet of paper. However, the good news is that he still had basic logical thinking and a healthy body. Having dealt with the two big problems after waking, Tyre sat up from the wooden bed beneath him. Because of his movement, the wooden bed creaked and groaned. Taking a deep breath, Tyre forced himself to rapidly calm down and look around. The first thing that entered his view was the room that he was in and its thatched roof, so Spartan in the furnishings that it feels as if a simple wind will knock the room down to the ground. A heavy layer of dust covered most of the room. It does not look like anyone has lived in here for a long while. Obviously, his life before losing his memories could not have been bad to the point of living in a shack like this. As Tyre kept looking around the room with his black hair and blue eyes, he saw a withered desk, a chair that is missing a leg, a tea set that looks like ancient relics freshly dug up, and finally, the teenage boy's vision froze under a teenage girl's gaze. No, it should be frozen under a teenage boy's gaze. There's something not quite right. Tyre rubbed his eyes, and opened his eyes as wide as possible to get a clearer view. Presented in front of his eyes was a teenage girl with a head of long black hair cascading straight down, and eyes bright like the star-filled night sky. Even though Tyre does not have any memories of the past, but he still knows, a teenage girl like this must be a goddess of all mortals. At the other end of the perspective, a head of short black hair, piercing bright eyes, a teenage boy with a stunned expression on his face and age just like the teenage girl around 16 years stared back. Although the boy's handsomeness doesn't even come close when compared to the girl's beauty, his level of ordinariness reaches the point of extraordinary, just the type that will meld into a sea of people without trace. What happened to me? What happened to me? At the same time that the teenage boy's voice sounded, the teenage girl said the exact same words. Obviously, teenage girl's angle-like voice overshadowed the teenage boy's voice in an instant. Tyre seemed like on the verge of realizing something incredible. Both the teenage girl's face and his own face showed a hint of paleness. No way, no way. Once again in unison, the two-person matched each other flawlessly in timing as if they were a pair of professional singers. No way, not even a professional duet, because even so one person might lag behind the other slightly. But in his case, the two are connected as if by spirit. Even the tone of their voice matched without difference. Though there was a difference, the teenage boy's face was pale as if he had constipation, not even worth mentioning, but the teenage girl's delicate face was pale, but appeared extremely fragile and helpless, arousing pity. Every scowl or smile seemed like the change of heaven and earth. It's like the expression change can cause doomsday. FML, FML. The boy and the girl cursed out loud at the same time, though such language coming out from a great beauty is really something else. No 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 no. Tyre felt that now was not the time for this. Originally thinking that amnesia was his biggest problem, but now there appears to be an even bigger issue at hand. First let's confirm something. Tyre, for the sake of confirming the situation at hand, gulped visibly. The sound was just like that of a parched athlete gulping down water. Just to clarify in advance, if I guessed wrong, I can accept any punishment aside from violence. Just to clarify in advance, if I guessed wrong, I can accept any punishment aside from violence. Stealing his resolve, Tyre extended his right hand and grabbed towards the teenager girl's rather lofty twin peaks. Surprisingly, the girl did not avoid, but rather repeated the same action to feel himself. At Novelbinat. If a sponge can be called soft, then what Tyre feel like he felt can be called soft to the extreme. The feeling on his hands directly revealed the heartbeat of the girl, making Tyre's breathing very irregular. At the same time, however, Tyre can also acutely perceive his own chest through the girl's hands. Exactly as I thought. Exactly as I thought. Adds by Pubfucheverly reluctantly putting down the trembling right hand. Tyre had to face this biggest and the most bizarre problem. He actually possessed the bodies of both a teenager boy and a teenager girl. One heart, two bodies. The first thing that must be confirmed is if he will react to his female self the same way that a male will react to another female, or in other words, lust. But when looking from the teenager girl's perspective towards his male self, the feeling of lust was completely gone. This proves that before he lost his memory, he must have been a guy and not a girl. And mentally, he does not want to think of himself as a woman either. The next issue is of course the visual problem, one conscience yet two field of views. This made the amnesia-ridden Tyre confused as to whether or not if this phenomenon is normal. He does not know if he would be labeled as weird if other people knew this. Next up was the problem of the movement obstacle. When two people make the same movements at the same time, many differences will pop out, such as walking. The female side won't have any obstructions and can pass easily, but Tyre's side might stumble, and even more embarrassing the how to relieve themselves. Pissing. Fortunately, he could still remember common sense, so he was not completely ignorant in the matter of how men and women relieve themselves. Final problem, the place that he is stranded in. The thatched hut is surrounded on all sides by the forest, lush with no end in sight. From time to time, there were even roars from unknown beasts coming from within the forest, and this isn't even the main point, because Tyre does not possess any wild survival experience or memories. From his every movement and body response to date, it seems that before losing his memories, he was by no means an athletic person, no callus on his palms, though there was some on his fingertips, so he concluded that he previously must have had some experience practicing with musical instruments, but as to what they were exactly, there was no way to know at the moment. If I stay here, I'll probably starve to death sooner or later. If I stay here, I'll probably starve to death sooner or later. He carefully controlled both selves to walk out of the thatched hut, at the same time felt a wave of headache. Indeed, although he does not feel any hunger at the moment, but after the passing of a day or two he will probably lose even the strength to walk. Must get out of here. Must get out of here. The duet style of talking made his throat felt as if he had a wad of spittle stuck in it but no way to spit it out. Very uncomfortable. Tyre furrowed his brows and looked at the girl, who looked straight back at him. Suddenly, inspiration overtook him. Let's try one heart two use, one mind. This idea took off without any sign of stopping, and what became hard to believe that his achievements on the way of one mind rose to ridiculous levels, making him doubt if he had possessed this skill before his memory loss. Chapter 2. To answer the call of nature. As he practiced one mind, he tried to find a way out of the forest, although there were still roars a while ago, but that is not a valid reason to stay where he is and take no risks. He does not want to put faith in the chances of a random person passing by this thatched shack that has seen nothing but dust for who knows how long. Tyre tried using one mind in many different postures on his way out the forest, sometimes one body running and the other walking slowly, sometimes one sitting down while the other is jumping, or sometimes the two would run in separate directions. As Tyre kept experimenting, the results were so simple that Tyre almost couldn't believe it, agile and nimble, moving just as he wishes with no obstructions. Now is not the time to play around. Tyre looked at the gradually dimming sky, feeling that walking around in the forest at nighttime was bound to have unpleasant things happen, but he is separated from the original shack by who know how much distance. He has been walking around for 3 hours unknowingly, and even if he wanted to go back, he can't avoid the night. All of a sudden, an urge to pee hit him. From the feeling of it, it should be from the girl's side, but this feeling spread to Tyre as well. Helpless, the boy took a deep breath, looked at the absolute beauty in front of him, eyes revealing a firm gaze. Okay, since it's like this, then let's test out the true profoundness of one mind. Must pee. Tyre's clothing was rather simple, making it really convenient to relieve himself, but, even after Tyre's side was already finished, the girl's side was still stuck with battling the complicated attire. All of a sudden, the urge to pee abruptly hit like a tidal wave. Girl Tyre's legs unconsciously clamped together, and a rosy red flushed her face. No, if this continues, things are going to get real bad. Tyre quickly ran over, and started helping the girl to take off her clothing. His anxious look from an outsider's perspective will definitely see this as the start of a crime scene. Adds by Pubfucher. The urge came wave after unrelenting wave. Tyre clearly felt that his female side's legs cannot hold on anymore. Faster, faster, faster. With both eyes red like a hungry wolf, he completely ignored the pain caused by his own forceful actions on his female self. This bit of pain is already not worth his attention, especially since this impending crisis can be said to be Tyre's greatest after waking up in the shack. The girl is already sweating from the urges, her beautiful black hair is plastered on her forehead, her face even more flushed, the feeling even caused her tears to well up in her eyes. No. I Tyre, will I lose my dignity for the first time in my life after this short of a time since waking? This, just how shameful is this? Yeah. The girl's piercing cry followed. That voice caused all who heard it to be distressed to the max. Tyre does not want to give up, hating himself for wearing something that wasn't a skirt or dress, but wearing this strange type of clothing. What really makes one even more shocked was this type of clothing was extremely durable. Bastard, loosen up already, if you don't, I will resort to brute force. With the pressing anxiety filling his head, Tyre set out a desperate yell. But answering this, was a resounding shout. Beast. Desist. 2 at Novelbinat. Claude Xavier, Khaled Xilia. Xavier, old Duke's only grandson, barely 19 years but possesses an astounding amount of duchy that peers since even grown men are envious of. However, because of his knightly education from the Hillier dukedom built from a foundation of knights, he was also a man who possesses the honorable knight's mindset. A head full of golden short hair and a pair of red eyes full of vitality causes a great portion of the girls to fall into captivation, to the point of him even appearing in their dreams. At this time, Claude was on horseback leading a 300-man cavalry through the forest. From their bedraggled and injured state, it was obvious to any onlooker that they have just experienced a battle not too long ago. But, from their manner and the way that they held their heads up high, it is easy to tell how the battle ended. Adds by Pubfucher. Thank God that Loud Jerry was with us this time. If it wasn't for you, those bandits would have definitely escaped. Claude thanked the old man next to him from the bottom of his heart. But suddenly, before the old man could respond, a pretty girl with a head of red hair answered first. She wore a suit of women's-style light armor, riding atop a big horse, making one image pop up to anyone who sees her: valiant. Claude, young master, you are way too modest. Even if Master Lao Jerry did not interfere, with the besieged circle of troops you set to ambush them, it would have been no problem to catch all of them. Even that bandit head, Mountain Axe King, who has a 10,000 gold reward on his head, would have trouble escaping. Then, the red-haired girl turned towards the old man next to Claude. His grey-white hair and a face full of deep creases and wrinkles could not cover up the attitude and style from his younger days. It is just so, Claude, young master, is our Xavier clan's once-in-a-hundred-years genius. This time's mission was originally able to be completed by the young master alone, but since both the Duke and I could not put down our worries, I insisted on coming along. Now it looks like all our worries were non-existent. So there is no need for the young master to be so modest. Loud Jerry grandfather, Leah, you guys. Claude revealed a helpless look, then looked behind him at the 300-strong elite cavalry squad, and commanded in a resounding voice, pass this on. Everyone did great this time. Every warrior is to be rewarded 10 gold apiece. Minor captains to be awarded 15 gold. Let everyone redouble their efforts and become even stronger. Yes. A herald messenger wheeled his horse towards the troops behind him with an excited look on his face, carrying out the orders he'd just received. On receiving this news, the entire squad of cavalry immediately became rowdy with joy, because that's an entire 10 pieces of gold. If a regular commoner wants to dress and eat comfortably for a day, he only needs 20 copper coins, but 1 gold coin equals 100 silver coins or 10,000 copper ones. 10 gold coins equals 100,000 copper ones, enough to stand up to the cavalrymen's expenses for 1 to 2 years. Hearing the loud ruckus behind her, The red-haired girl pouted her lips. Claude, young master, need not give them this much gold coins. After all the efforts for this mission came from you and Master Lao Jerry. Claude kept his faint smile and shook his head. This cannot be said like that, Leah. Although this time Lao Jerry grandfather did most of the work and spent the most effort, but the warriors in the cavalry also faced the bandits' vicious suicidal counterattacks. Gambling their lives when they have less ability of self-preservation than us is more worthy of glory and credit than us. Really? Leah non-committedly pouted, showing a confused face. Of course. Claude extended a big and wide right hand and stroked Lee's pretty and glistening hair while answering back. Of course, our female knight Leah also contributed a lot, and it looks like your fighting prowess will catch up to my level soon. Leah meekly shrank her head back, with her face flushed bright red. Thankfully it was approaching dusk, or else if Lee's current appearance were to be seen by others, so shameful. I don't need the verbal praises, Humphrey. Leah made a small sound. Claude cocked his head with a puzzled look on his face, but just as he was going to ask Leah what she wanted as a reward, a distressed cry came from not far away. Chapter 3 Noo, a cry full of dismay that causes all who hears it distress sounded. Even though the angelic tone of the sound temporarily put Claude into a trance, but he quickly realized the reason behind the cry. Upset at himself for enjoying the voice when there is someone in trouble, Claude quickly rushed towards the source of the sound. Follow me. Yes. Lee's face also changed, swinging her horse around to follow alongside Lao Jerry, and the cavalrymen behind also followed with a reaction time slightly lower than her, immediately rushing over as well. Claude ignored the branches and vines whipping his face. His knightly honor does not allow him to be late, because the amount of despair in that voice would cause anyone who heard to rush to the rescue. At the same time, on the other side of the trees came a man's coarse shouting. Bastard, loosen up already, if you don't, I will resort to brute force. Claude's face immediately darkened when he heard this. This was obviously the voice of the culprit. Charging clear of the final obstructing trees, what entered his eyes was the side view of a girl's face, but just that was enough to almost cause Claude to cease breathing. But after expanding his field of view, a 17-18-year-old male was using brute force trying to derobe the girl's clothing. The guy's eyes were red like a bull in lust, and the young girl was showing a face full of despair. Bastard! A great amount of anger welled up inside of Claude's heart. He had never felt this angry before. Beast! Desist! He roared out, causing the other guy to temporarily freeze in obvious shock, attracting both the guy and girl's looks, but weirdly, both showed looks of hope. How timely! Noble sir, hurry up and lend me your sword without delay. I can't hold back anymore. These pants must be slashed open with a weapon. The young man expressed his joy, looking at Claude as if looking at a ray of hope. Adds by Pub Futcher. But the wrathful Claude's face upon hearing this darkened further. His eyes shone with killing intent. That was the same cold intent he had shown the bandit group. Scram! Huh? The young man looked very confused, and he kept his hands where they were with no intention of removing them, not stopping their action of unclothing the girl. Scum! Faced with the hopeful looks of the girl, Claude's last bit of patience for talking with the scum was gone almost, but he still held back his anger, yelling for the other guy to scram, showing his great patience. Claude unsheathed his silver long sword. Under the glare of the setting sun, the weapon shone with a sharp aura. Since words were useless, this type of scum must pay the price. Claude charged towards the young man and slashed. Wah! Not knowing if the other person had really good reflex or if he possessed really good luck, the young man avoided heavy injury and escaped with a finger-wide cut on his arm. Ugh! The young man cradled his arm and fell on the ground, showing great pain. The absolute beauty on the other hand looked as if breathing a sigh of relief before passing out with all the strength going away. WTH! Do you want to kill me? Who are you? The young man looked toward Claude with fury in his eyes, but the handsome youth atop the sturdy horse pulled the fainted girl atop his horse before turning and looking at the youth on the ground with cold eyes before dismissing his existence and leaving. The young man on the ground kept silent, because the look from the other guy told him, if he said another word, it won't be just an injury, it will be his life. Returning into the forest, Claude faced Leah and Lao Jerry, who just arrived. What happened? The one who called out was her. Leah hesitated briefly before exclaiming, "Heavens, am I looking at a goddess?" Even Lao Jerry was shocked, speechless. No matter how you put it, he has seen many things in his years, but he has never seen anyone more beautiful than this girl in front of him. Adds by Pubfuture. Claude's heart was also shocked, but upon recalling the scene from a moment ago, he couldn't help but become gloomy. "It is so." Claude repeated what happened earlier to Leah and others. Leah, after hearing the incident, couldn't help but thunder out, "Damn scum, I will kill him." Lao Jerry on the side kept silent but didn't stop Leah, though a flash of anger shone in his eyes. However, Claude stopped Lee's horse and said, "At Novelbinat. Stop it, the other guy did not commit any actual crime, and I have already injured him. There is no need to go further and kill him. Also, getting tainted with the blood of this type of scum will only insult your blade." But although Leah does not want to let this matter go, but she cannot disobey the young master's orders. Young master can be so stubborn at times, she silently complained but dispersed the duchy around her. "Let's go, it is already late, we should get back before grandfather worries." Claude was about to leave when Lao Jerry, who was observing the young girl on Claude's horse, said, "Claude, young master, I feel we should capture that impudent criminal." "Why is that?" "Because this young lady is wearing strange clothing, but she is also surrounded by a noble aura. This is not something a normal person would have, therefore we should capture that criminal and extract some information to allow us better accommodate this young lady when she wakes up," Lao Jerry said with eyes showing wisdom. It was obvious that this old man had other meaning to his words, but Leah and Claude, being less wise, did not capture his deeper meaning, only feeling that his words were reasonable but with a hint of something off about it. Lao Jerry, "Grandfather is right, it is my fault. First squad captain, you came at just the right time. Go and capture the young man in the forest. If he resists, capture him using any methods you need, just make sure he can still speak." Yes. After receiving the order, the well-trained cavalry knight captain immediately charged into the forest, but a short while later, he came back. "I am sorry, leader, but the young man has already disappeared. Even with perception used, I still couldn't find him." "This is not your fault, you worked hard, go rest." Claude softly sighed. After waving down the captain, he looked towards Lao Jerry with apology. This was a low-level mistake. If he wasn't so hot-headed at the time and thought things out calmly, his judgment would not be inferior to that of Lao Jerry. "Young master, this is not your fault either. This is but one clue. With the information network in the dukedom, we should be able to find clues quickly." Although Leah was still angry, but after seeing Claude's depressed looks, could not help but encourage him. Lao Jerry could only smile and shake his head, said, "The day is already late. The plan was to return to the castle before sunset. Letting the old master worry is my irresponsibility." Now, young master, this thing can wait until we get back before dealing with it further." Claude couldn't help but sigh and shake his head. This time it was definitely his mistake, but when his sight fell on the girl on his horse, his heart started to shake with ripples of emotions. Chapter 4. Claude helplessly curled his mouth, but something caught his attention. The left hand that he was using to prevent the young girl from falling off the horse suddenly felt a wave of hotness. Claude raised his left hand and saw a clear fluid covering it. "What is this?" he questioned, but he immediately became alert. Could this be tracking fluid? Legends has it that in the ancient East, there were certain methods that assassins used to track others, involving the use of solids, fluids, and even gases. Even if the distance was extremely far, they could still feel out the existence of the target. The girl in front of him was so beautiful. Even her attire was different. Therefore, Claude came to the conclusion that her background must be incredible, so the possibility that she was being targeted by an assassin was not non-existent. Claude's face was solemn and grave. There was no way he could be sure that this was a tracing fluid, but he had to be sure. Rumors have it that the taste of tracing fluids was like that of tears, slightly bitter. He only needed one taste to confirm. Claude slightly squinted his eyes, and just as he was about to lick it, Leah, who was observing all that was happening, suddenly realized something. She looked at the girl with her soaked pants and flushed face. "Claude, young master." This sudden yell scared Claude into immediately sending out his perception into the surrounding area, but he couldn't find any traces of an ambush. I died. If you don't believe me, ask Nay." "What's the matter?" Leah looked at Claude, who still had on a face of confusion, and couldn't resist blushing even harder. She reached out and yanked the girl from Claude's horse onto her own. With an extremely awkward expression, she hesitated for a long time before finally saying in a low voice, "You, young master, you pervert." Claude became even more perplexed. Leah was a very polite and virtuous girl. Why would she say these kinds of words, and toward him no less? However, when he saw the wet region spanning a certain place on the girl's pants, Claude froze. Adds by Pubfucher he had been petrified on the spot. Humphrey. Leah knew that this behavior wasn't very appropriate, but how could she watch her young master commit this type of lowly mistake? Some vague and intangible feeling somewhere inside her also caused her to have a slight sense of dissatisfaction with Claude. "Young master, you big idiot." After saying this, she took a cloak from her pack and covered the young girl's body before turning around her horse and leaving, abandoning a disheveled Claude and a Laugerie, who appeared deep in thought. The cavalry saw this scene from behind them and glanced at each other, not understanding what was going on at all. However, when they saw the appearance of the girl atop the back of Lee's horse, all of the cavalrymen froze, their state not one hair's difference from that of Claude when he'd been petrified. "Heavens! Good heavens, brother! Did you see that? That must be an angel." "No, it must be an earthbound goddess." I, Jack, in this entire life, have never seen such a beautiful scene. Even if I die, I will die with no regrets. Being alive is too great. Thank you, Almighty Lord. Thank you, beautiful goddess. Leah passed through the throng of people, hearing all the comments of the men behind her. She could not resist pouting her small mouth. What? All these men are a crowd of idiots. At this time, Claude was still in a state of petrification, the liquid on his hand dripping down slowly with a pa-pa-pa sound onto the back of his horse. The wise and far-sighted Laugerie tilted his head, then, shaking it, patted the shoulders of the handsome youth with the empathy of an experienced elder. "Don't mind it too much." Ads by Pubfucher cut to male vision. Tyre watched as the golden-haired knight left before letting out a deep and muffled cry of pain. Without caring for the wound, he stood and ran like a mad dog through the woods. Although that golden-haired bastard didn't have the intent of killing him, there was no telling when the guy might change his mind. Even if the other didn't bother to do it personally and instead let his subordinates do the deed instead, it would still lead to a bad ending. Tyre received scratches all over his body from the branches and thorny vines that tore at him, but he didn't have the time to care as he ran without stopping. He found that his girl-side's vision was a field of pitch black. It seemed that she had fainted. If at the time his girl self was still awake, he might have been able to avoid this debacle and not become such a haggard mess. It must have leaked out by now. Tyre was so ashamed and embarrassed that he had completely forgotten about the pain from his wounds. Although his girl self had already fainted, it would have zero effect in stopping the urge to pee. Wetting one's pants, this kind of thing, in Tyre's view, would only happen to little kids and cowards. This is terrible. That bastard Goldilocks, who is he? Slashing people without a single word of warning, and even abducting me. Could he be a bandit? Tyre's chest suddenly tightened. If he really was a bandit, then seeing a girl as beautiful as himself must cause their lust meter to break their charts and open their appetites wide. Thinking up to there, Tyre's face became pale white and his chrysanthemum tightened by itself. His whole person felt extremely unsettled. That kind of thing, they wouldn't do that kind of thing, right? No. Pukaku dies chrysanthemum feels like a 12-year-old kid but continues laughing because who cares? From their uniforms and armor, they must be a regular army troop. Even though that guy's eyes were scary, there was no evil feeling to them. This kind of person, what were they called again? At Novelbinat. After thinking for a while, Tyre still could not recall the word night. The only thing left was to pray that his fears would not turn into reality. After feeling once again that no one was chasing behind him, he finally slowed his feet and looked at his slightly swollen left arm. He immediately tore off a strip of his clothing and tied it around the wound. I must stop the blood flow, at the very least, and prevent any infections. He didn't know why he thought like this, but he had a feeling that not doing so would cause unthinkable consequences. This must be common knowledge that he had obtained from his memory fragments. It was just like looking at a tree and knowing what it was. This sort of basic stuff wasn't something that he would forget. As he wrapped the torn cloth around his arm, Tyre began to worry again. Now it looks like myself and my other self are getting further and further away. He didn't know if the distance between his two selves would affect his ability to control his bodies, but it was giving him a headache. Although he felt that his girl body was very cumbersome, he had a feeling that on this side, he wouldn't be able to live for too long after. As a result, he was still extremely worried and could only hope that his other self would have better luck. Just pretend that she had been rescued by a handsome, virtuous, and impotent knight. Although being impotent was a little bit unreasonable, there was still a chance that it might be true. Ahahaha. Chapter 5. We discovered that what we thought the first chapter of DTW was actually part 1/3 of the first chapter, which we then split into 2 parts XD. Just as Tyre tried to amuse himself with a few wild thoughts, a huge and terrifying roar resounded. It was an angry and thunderous roar that caused Tyre to sweat buckets, and all the hair follicles on his body stood up as he hastened to find a cluster of greenery to hide behind. Only his eyes could be seen as he observed the situation. Peng, peng. The ground shook in sync with the booming sounds that echoed through the air. Tyre looked upwards and saw a gargantuan monstrosity of over 30 meters tall walking step by step past his hiding place. Because it was overly huge, the breathing of the beast was like that of a fierce wind blowing through, and inside its throat, rumbling sounds could also be heard. It shook Tyre so hard that he didn't even dare to breathe. If this beast had stood in front of him and roared, Tyre didn't even have the confidence that he would remain conscious. Roar. The huge beast roared with every 10th step. The rhythmic roar gradually began to fade in the distance, the monster's passage leaving destruction behind in the surrounding area as it crushed a path through the dense forest. Tyre continued to watch until the beast had moved far away before slowly standing out of his place in a tree groove and wiping the sweat off his forehead. He let out the breath of air that he had been holding. Although he didn't possess any memories, he was very clear about the fact that this kind of huge beast wouldn't bother with something as small as him. Even that Goldilocks bastard would run if he saw this kind of beast, right? Just as Tyre was considering following the beast to play the fox who imitated a tiger for intimidation, a cultured and refined voice interrupted him. Ads by Pubfuture. This young man? A person's voice. Tyre immediately became cautious and glanced around. I say, this courageous and righteous young man. From the tone of the voice, the person didn't seem to have any hostile intentions. This allowed Tyre to secretly let out a sigh of relief. After looking around a bit, but not finding anyone, Tyre could only say, Sir, if you want to hold a discussion with me, then would you at least come out and face me, please? This was the best response that Tyre could think of. If the other person wouldn't come out, then he wouldn't care anymore. The owner of the voice seemed to go into deep thought before breaking the silence with an answer. If, young man, you would turn around and look on the left path behind that mountain dog, and then look for a handsome and heroic silhouette, I think we will be able to cheerfully hold a conversation. The weird answer caused Tyre to look over as the voice had instructed, but the only thing that his eyes fell on was a humongous crab that had half sunk into a patch of mud. Its size was not any smaller than Tyre, and the hue of it was that of a poisonous green, appearing very difficult to get close to. Where was the handsome and heroic silhouette? Tyre carefully looked again, but after affirming that there was only a crab present, couldn't help but feel discontent and say, Sir, if you don't want to meet with me, just say it directly. Taking a half-dead, soft-shoe crab to joke around with me is not going to raise my opinion of you. Ads by Pubfuture. What? You actually dare call this handsome and heroic martial god? This indestructible me, a stinking soft-shoed crab? Don't you feel that to a deity, this is plain blasphemy? The owner of the voice seemed very angry, but Tyre thought that he was still joking, and didn't have the mind to continue this farce, and so turned to leave. Young man, don't leave. Tyre kept ignoring him. He originally thought that he could make a hard-to-meet friend in the forest, but he had never thought that the other would be this much of a weirdo. Okay, I admit that I am a soft-shoed crab, so you can come back. Tyre seemed determined to leave and was walking further and further away. The voice's owner sighed and suddenly changed his tone of voice so that it was no longer good-natured, but serious, and said, "Brat, do you think that without me, you can walk out of her alive?" Tyre stopped, his heart starting to worry. He really was too unfamiliar with this world he was in. With no other choice, he could only turn back around and look at the self-proclaimed martial deity of a crab. "What do you mean? You still don't understand? In this forest, there are tons of things like that magic beast from just now, and there are even more terrifying ones. If I wasn't paying attention to you, you would have been dead ever since that night had wanted to kill you." The owner of the voice laughed coldly, and frightened Tyre. After all, he had looked back in the direction he had escaped from and knew it was a long ways away. He had run for at least 2 hours, yet this guy actually knew what had happened from so far away. Adds by Pubfuture. Another point. No matter if it's a wild beast or magic beast, as long as they have lived for a certain period of time, they will be able to develop intelligence. If you don't believe that a crab can talk, then you can think of me as a demon beast who has lived for over thousands of years. Tyre opened his eyes wide with a start, then began to walk step by step until he had reached the crab's body. He said to himself, "So there were things like this too, huh? I am still suspicious of why a kid like you would appear alone in this area of the forest. I remember at that time there was also a girl with you, right?" The big crab's voice stopped a bit before he chuckled vulgarly. "Though ironically that girl trusted you so much, yet you still did that kind of thing to her." "That kind of thing?" Tyre blinked his eyes, and "I don't know what the hell you're talking about" look on his face. The large crab didn't wish to dawdle on this topic for too long, so he coughed and said, "Brat, how about we make a deal? Wait, why are you standing so far away?" "No, that is, because you look like very poisonous. So it's better if I hang." "Dumb brat, can't you see that my body has been soaking in the blood of the Dragon King for over 1,000 years? In order to achieve this set of transcending ultra super god armor, this color is only a sign that my body's resistance to magic and physical force has reached its max. So it's like that," Tyre calmly replied, his collected and dismissive tone contrasting greatly with the crab's arrogant and prideful bragging. If it was before, he would definitely have made this brat sit down and listen to the story of his past 10,000 years and how he had become who he was today. Though, looking at it now, it was a time for expectations and the brat didn't appear to have the patience to listen to his lengthy biography. The green crab knew at least this much. Yes, it's really transcending ultra super god armor. Useless words are useless no matter how much is said. "Young man, what's your name?" "Tyre," he said without hesitation. He had never used this name, so there was no need to change it. For manners' sake, he waved his hand and asked, "How about you?" "You can just call me Kaming Elder. At Novelbinat." "Then, Mr. Kaming, what you just said was very reasonable. How should I break you out of this forest then?" "I think that based on the fact that you can observe me from that far away, you wouldn't be calling to me just for the sake of a small chat, right?" Ignoring the elder part, Tyre directly went straight to the point. "Also, what's strange is that, previously, I had walked in this forest for almost 4 hours straight, and yet I didn't meet any danger." "How do you explain this?" "Also, I think that Mr. Kaming should have been able to observe me only from 2 hours ago. Even if you really had the ability to protect me from monsters while I was escaping earlier, how would you explain the 4 hours before that?" Chapter 6. So that's the case. Though, before that, I still wish you could release me from this pile of mud. "If you do, I will be forever thankful," Kaming sincerely requested, though seeing the slight disgust in Tyre's eyes, exploded in anger again. "Brat, My transcending ultra super god armor is really not poisonous. What's with that expression? Even if it's me, who is widely known as a good-tempered person, I can get mad, and besides, I'm a deity. If I really wanted to harm you, why would I beat around the bush so much? I would just use my godly power and explode your head from over 800 miles away. Then show me that so-called godly power of yours. Tyre had the attitude of not releasing the hawk until he sees the rabbit. Although Kaming had already shown Tyre the tip of the iceberg, the boy still didn't believe him. After all, in a dangerous place such as this, a little caution was needed. How could Kaming not know what Tyre was thinking? He swayed his body left above the mud and sighed. Young people these days. Suddenly, Tyre's left arm shone with a bright light, which was extra dazzling when compared to the darkness of the night. It didn't last very long though, and the light slowly began to fade away. Tyre looked at his left arm in amazement, then looked at the large crab. Sir Kaming, why did you do that? Tyre didn't feel like making his arm glow was a miraculous and godly thing, and it didn't seem linked to godly power in any way. Kaming waved his 8 legs, that were pointed towards the sky, and said with a grumpy voice, "Your own arm's wounds you didn't even know?" Ads by Pubfucher. Tyre's heart thumped, and he unwrapped the cloth on his arm. Shockingly he found that the wounds had disappeared, leaving only dry blood behind. It's healed. How did you do this? Although I am not a deity that specializes in healing, letting mortals regrow an arm is merely a small thing that even I can accomplish. For us deities, healing a little wound like this is as easy as breathing. Kaming swayed his butt, an extremely satisfied expression on his face. This made Tyre overwrite the image of the crab that he previously had. Tyre seriously thought about it for a second before asking, "Then Sir Kaming, if you already have such strong godly power, why would you need my help in getting out of the mud? This type of small thing should be very easy for you, right?" Tyre's voice now had a respectful tone to it, letting Kaming say, in praise. He even said, as expected, "Brats like you need a show of power to know what it means to respect a deity." "It's actually pretty shameful." Kaming dryly coughed, as if this matter was a very embarrassing thing. The originally calm and easygoing manner he had before had now become much thinner. "My lord sent me here to oversee this area of the Sicily Kingdom, but the lord's meaning was for me to not interfere with this world." He forced to stay stuck in this patch of mud, only able to use perception to observe the kingdom. Although the lord really doesn't talk reason, he made it so that only a human who happened here by chance can free me. Only then will I be able to obtain the freedom to move around the entire Sicily Kingdom. Can you understand it if I say it like this? Sicily, so that's where this place was. Sicily Kingdom, huh? Tyre sighed, then quickly walked over to Kaming, and without saying another word, pulled on the 2 smallest legs, plucking the crab right out of the ground. "Whoa! What are you doing?" Kaming had been caught completely by surprise, his hard-earned image suddenly shattered by his scream. Despite this, Tyre remained calm and brushed the dirt off his hands. "Of course it's to pull you out." "It was easier than I had thought, though." "Really? At least let other people prepare first." "Staying in that patch of mud for 300 years you say pull and then you pull. There isn't a single bit of noble aspiration in that." Kaming raised his huge pincers and protested discontentedly as such. Tyre tilted his head, not understanding at all what the crab meant by noble aspirations. The fact that the crab had been buried here for 300 years and could still remain so happy was unfathomable to Tyre. If it was him, he would have gone insane long ago. Ads by Pubfucher. Sir Kaming, since you are out now, then can you answer my question? Also, looking at your appearance, it seems that you don't have any intentions of killing me after being freed, so let's return to the previous topic. Kaming nodded his head, and looked back at Tyre, saying, "To answer your previous question, your partner most likely has a body of holy light. Only this constitution will allow you to avoid meeting any magical beasts." "Body of holy light?" "You don't know?" "This should be understood by everyone." "Sorry, it's just that I just woke up, and am also suffering from amnesia to boot." Such a tragedy." "The same thing happened with your partner as well?" "Yes." Kaming went into deep thought, and mumbled, Then that's really strange. What's strange? Nothing, just mumbling to myself. Let me first explain to you what a body of holy light is. Kam-Ing changed the topic and became serious. The body of holy light is one that possesses a strong affinity to the light element. Normally speaking, a normal person will have 10% of an affinity, in this example, a light affinity, and learn light attribute magic. When one has over 50% affinity to the light element is when their constitution is referred to as a body of light, and they will have greater achievements when practicing light type magic. When the affinity then surpasses 90%, that's when we refer to that person as possessing a body of holy light, and not only will that person have extraordinary achievements in light type magic, but they will also be able to deter low-level magic beasts. And saying it like this, you can understand it, right? So it's like this, huh? The body of holy light is something this strong. Then what's my body type? Tyre asked excitedly as he opened both his hands, wanting Kam-Ing to test him. What he got, though, was a look that seemed as if one was looking at a pile of trash. Did Novelbinat. Just you? Other than a virgin, what else? Chapter 7 Magician and Martial Artist. Tyre was silent. Kam-Ing was also silent. At Novelbinat. That's right, Sir Kam-Ing. What was the magic you spoke of just now? Is it a type of mysterious energy? The extreme speed of topic changing left Kam-Ing stupefied for a moment before he replied with a cough. That's right. Since you have amnesia, the common knowledge for this continent must have also disappeared with your memories. Though, not losing language and cognition is a fortunate thing. Kam-Ing ignored Tyre's reactions, and started circling Tyre. Earth, water, fire, wind, lightning, these are the 5 low-level attribute elements, and light, dark, space, these are the 3 high-level attribute elements. Just as I said before, as long as one's compatibility reaches above 10% with a certain element, the one can learn magic from that attribute. Magic, just as its name indicates, uses the law of magic, and there are 17 stages of magic laws. Stopping there, Kam-Ing raised his left pincer, and suddenly a big scorching fireball appeared above his left pincer, as if a smaller version of the sun. The terrifying temperature caused Tyre to unconsciously take a step back. Jerry, imagine a crab with its pincers up holding a fireball. Adds by Pubfuture. This is first stage magic, fireball. From here on up, first stage and second stage magicians are magician apprentice, the third stage is magician, 4th to 9th stage are grand magician, 10th to 13th stage are magic instructors. As for 14 to 16 stages, these are the limits that mortals can reach, sacred magicians, and from stage 17 and up, the magic supersedes the boundaries and are called non-magic. Only deities and other races can interact at this level. Have you understood what I have said so far? Yes, Kam-Ing, sir. I feel that magic is very good. Can you teach me this? I believe that with this I can safely leave this forest. Tyre's eyes shone with light, and his impression of the big crab increased by the second. The very poisonous-looking green shell now looked somewhat profound. Don't be in a hurry. I entered the realm of the deities through the path of martial arts. After all, the magic part is something that I learned out of boredom after becoming a deity. I, myself, is still half-baked in it. How can I teach you? Kam-Ing said with extreme honesty, and Kam-Ing was someone who said what was in their mind, without the slightest cover-up, giving Tyre a better impression of the crab. Also, the crab almost seemed like a real deity, or in other words, to be able to talk to a mortal with such equality, can be said to be very approachable, very honest and the modest. Then your meaning is? Tyre said half a sentence. How could Kam-Ing not understand what Tyre was thinking inside? So he waved his pincer in a nonchalant way and said, since you helped me escape that patch of mud, as a deity I will make it worth your while. Even though I still have a mountain of things to take care of, I can still teach you a few moves. Really? Then let's start now, Tyre said with extreme excitement, when he thought of the moment before when the blonde bastard scared himself with just a glare from the eyes. He suddenly became angry. Although Tyre doesn't like to provoke others, but if it's that guy, if he doesn't return the favor, he can't live down this matter. I already planned to teach you a few moves, and then I have to go take care of my business. Of course you can be assured, Even if the lowest deity teaches you, you will have some accomplishments, not even mentioning a veteran deity such as myself. An entire nodded his head, so obedient that Kaming suspected that the rude youth that so easily dismissed himself earlier was an illusion. Adds by Pubfucher. After recovering his wits, Kaming coughed once, just like a teacher, still circling Tyre. Martial artists are 1 in 10 people. Compared to magicians, they can be said to have reached an overflow state. Because of this, martial arts are more strict on the rankings, and the professions are even more diverse. Knights are 1, assassins are 1, and sword masters are 1. Just as a side note, magicians also have seal masters, elementalists, and seers. Just as magicians need the elemental magic around them to cast magic, martial artists also need Qi to use martial techniques. Qi harmony is the first stage, where the body becomes many times stronger than that of a normal person, comparable to that of a wild beast. Army breaker. The number of people who can reach this stage is just like the top level of a pagoda, much smaller than the masses of Qi harmony. This stage can be said to be the main pillars of a nation. Some small nations will even grant pieces of land to entice them. Heavenly Sun, and even higher there, Phoenix, stage I think will be useless to you even if I did explain them. When you reach a certain stage, you will naturally know. As if considering Tyre's amnesia, Kaming told him some very basic knowledge in detail. Tyre sat and listened to this as if a very obedient student, taking in all that the big crab was saying. A basic martial artist must possess Qi, martial technique, and various weaponry. Qi cultivation method I can teach you, body technique and the martial technique I can also pass along to you. As for weaponry, I think this tree branch will suffice. As a deity, Kaming sir, don't you have any belongings? Shoot up. All things can be used, as long as you are clear in the martial moves. Even a small tree branch can defeat someone far stronger than you. Kaming said with a grand and aloof attitude, but in Tyre's eyes, the crab seemed to be lacking in confidence. Cough cough, really is a naive brat. Okay, enough useless talk, let us start with body method. Tyre's brows furrowed. He became solemn without saying a word. Is something the matter? No, nothing. Please continue teaching me. Tyre suddenly became silent because his other self woke up. Chapter 8 Edit, edited by Dark Lord 5555. Chapter 8, Lunaria, suggestions are welcome. Sponsored by Boon. She moved her body, it didn't seem to be tied. From the result of the situation, it didn't seem like that guy was a bandit. What's more, the room that she was in right now is adorned to the point of being luxurious. There is no way that she will believe that a bandit would possess such a room. Also, she could also tell from this room that the blonde bastard's social positions is not low, and from the young age, he must be the grandson of someone with lots of power. Just as the young girl was thinking wildly, a clear voice came into her ears. Are you awake? How does your body feel? The young girl turned her head towards the source of the voice. What appeared before her eyes was a young girl with a head of flaming red hair. And judging from Tyre's tastes, this red-haired girl can be ranked in the top for prettiness, plus that wonderful body. Guess there will be no one who won't be stunned at first glance by her. What's more, there was a unique air around her. It was something that doesn't exist around a weak girl. Her sight was as straight as swords, bright and full of expression. Just as girl Tyre's eyes lighted up, a faint smell of sweet fragrance wafted close, making the girl on the bed show signs of enjoyment. Now doesn't seem to be the right time to be distracted. There's proper business at hand. Tyre suddenly understood the meaning behind the saying, lust can lead to bitter consequences. Why am I? Girl Tyre said with a slightly dried out throat. Originally, Tyre was going for expressions of confusion, but in the other person's eyes, it became an expression of fear and alarm, making the other person instantly feel sympathy. The red-haired girl couldn't help her hands, and started patting Tyre's head, gently stroking down the length of Tyre's long hair. Everything is all right now, all the bad things have passed. Ads by Pubfucher. Girl Tyre was stumped, feeling that the other person misunderstood something. But first let's not worry about this. Compared to that, She need to understand what situation she is in right now. Who are you and where am I right now? Seeing that the other person was being so gentle, she shouldn't refuse to answer this simple question right, so Girl Tyre took advantage of the other person's kindness and asked 2 questions in a row. Just as the girl had thought, the other person smiled slightly, and started stroking the girl's soft pitch black hair again before lightly saying, "I am called Leah, Victor. But you can just call me Leah." And this place Leah stopped here, and her expression changed to one of great pride. Even her originally very straight posture became even more straight, though what Girl Tyre noticed was the sudden rising action of the chest region. "And this place is the glorious Hilliard Dam. Here, there will be no trifling ruffians who will dare bother you, so there is no need to be afraid. Human trash like the one who was bothering you before won't dare come here. If they do come here, then we see one, we kill one." Leah finished the last sentence with a strict expression, scaring Girl Tyre and making her heart almost jump out of her chest. Human trash. The young girl's mouth twitched, unspeakable awkwardness on her face. From Lee's words, Tyre was reminded of the situation. At that time, she really was a bit too rough and hot-headed, and from another person's perspective it really might seem like a sexual assault scene. No wonder they would misunderstand, and now the first they said when she woke up was words to calm and assure herself, and spoken with great care too. But if it's like this, then won't the blonde bastard be a hero who stood out for a girl in trouble, and become her savior? There is no way that she will admit that, definitely not going to admit that. The blonde bastard as her savior. No. What is this logic? Leah, seeing the girl in front suddenly quiet down, felt not knowing what to do, and so she said with a hurry, sorry. It's my fault for being too talkative, bringing up that bad memory. Let's not think about that human trash anymore, okay?" Looks like there is no way to avoid the title of human trash. Good thing only the blonde bastard saw herself that time. Maybe after a slight disguise to her male self, she can still interact with them as him. Ads by Pubfugelia, wanting to change the topic and take the girl's mind off of things, hurried and asked, "Oh yeah, I still don't know your name yet. What are you called, little sister?" Girl Tyre hesitated. This is really a challenging question. She was completely without a name, and if she said Tyre, that will sound way too masculine. And then her male self can't use that name in public anymore either. Just to avoid arousing suspicions, she had better come up with a more unique name. Right as this thought flashed through her mind, she had an answer, and she answered with a slightly trembling voice. Lunaria. There was no specific reason behind the name, it's just like the name Tyre. The name just popped up in her mind, and there was more names in her mind floating around, but much less clear. Names like Lunaria, Charlotte, Beatrice, Clausilia, but these should be a part of her old memories. Leah heard the name and expressed some astonishment. She asked cautiously, "So Lunaria, right? What's your family name?" "Family name? It's Luna." Lunaria felt that this was fairly normal. Wasn't Tyre's family name Justy? Leah saw that the other was very confident in her answer, so she took another look at Lunaria, making Lunaria feel like she was a lamb being evaluated right before the slaughter. Then, "Lunaria, little sister, you should be from the Vermilion Empire, right?" This sudden question caused Lunaria to be surprised this turn. Vermilion Empire? Where's that at? Lunaria only heard from the big crab that this place was Sicily Empire, and nothing else. Miss Leah, my head, it hurts. What's wrong? Leah saw the other suddenly let out a miserable cry, and didn't know how to respond. Could it be something left from that human trash actions? Leah thought like this to herself, and became even more frantic, and immediately scooched closer to Lunaria to check if there was any head injuries. Of course, this action made her luxurious chest also follow along, sticking to Lunaria's body. Before the chest touched, Lunaria was still okay, but right when it touched, her breathing immediately became faster, and the originally faked headache became an actual headache from too much blood rushing up there. This made Lunaria curse a little on the inside. "Miss Leah, this tactic of bringing the ball when hitting people is against the rules." Chapter 9 Edit. Now it has been edited by Dark Lord 5555. Chapter 9 Claude's Worries. Sponsored by Boon. Yelling not good inside her mind, Lunaria took deep breath and pretended to feel unwell before saying, "No, it's not that. Only, I don't know why, but when I try to recall my home or my family, my head will start hurting, as if there is a knife poking my head." "Ah yeah. This." "Oh yeah, yes, Lunaria little sis, wait 1 second for me, let me go and bring Lao Jerry Elder here, he must have a way." Right as she finished speaking, her body flew out of the room as if she was a bird, gone in a blink of an eye. Watching Leah leave, Lunaria kept her moaning and groaning act for a while longer before finally letting out a breath. I almost lost it back there." Recalling that feeling of Lee's soft chest, Lunaria's face suddenly became soft like it will melt. "Ah, no is not the time to get excited. This body is a girl, so there will be plenty of time for that later, so why relish this small moment?" With this thought in mind, Lunaria's face melted once more. Ads by Pubfutcher. After fantasizing a while, Lunaria finally started to take a more detailed look at her surroundings. The room was roughly 10 meters by 10 meters big, and there were finely made engravings placed all around the room. On the walls, there hang many different paintings. From the setup, the person who designed this room must have a really good taste. A faint smell of flowers wafted from a cluster of azure-colored flowers nearby, luring Lunaria to take a deep whiff. "What a unique scent. This is Dayrot flower." Looking at the 3 words carved on the flower basin, along with some information on the place where the flowers came from, growing and caring methods make Lunaria raise her brows. Following the flowers with her sight, she found a stone sitting atop a pure black table. "What's this thing?" The amnesiac Lunaria seemed like a curious cat with endless energy, propelling herself off the bed. No signs of being sick or unwell at all. She jumped down the bed and walked slowly to the desk, picking up the rock. Rather than saying rock, the heaviness of the thing felt more like steel. There was a thumb-sized dent on the rock that tempted her to press it, so she did. "Hello friends and audience, welcome. Thank you for watching Cicely TV, Hillier Branch." Wah! Lunaria jumped like a little cat, eyeing the palm-sized picture that appeared above the stone, throwing the stone into the air. Though, after seeing that there wasn't any harm to her, she caught the stone again with her hands. As time passes, Hillier Dukedom has welcomed its 400th year. In the past, the heroic Duke Hillier I killed a 7-headed black dragon. His noble achievements live to this day. Lunaria's eyes shone with light. There was a beautiful and mature lady standing inside the picture, her hands holding a rod-like thing, concentrated on her praises of the great Hillier Dukedom achievements. And now, the spring has passed and fall has come. The present governor of the Hillier Dukedom, the great Felices Hillier Duke, has also reached the great age of 120 years old, and at the same time, the young Master Claude has returned from his task of bringing down the bandit leader who has a 100,000 gold bounty on his head. This next segment is a personal interview. Hello everyone, I am Claude Hillier. In the picture, a handsome guy wearing a suite of silver armors greeted the camera with some shakiness. Novelbinat. Lunaria took a step back from the picture. Isn't this that blonde bastard? Ads by Pubfutcher. Lunaria has that suite of silver armor carved deeply in her memory, but she would have never thought that this blonde bastard would turn out to be a very highly ranked individual, from the title young master or from the attitude that the mature lady had towards him. There is no way that his identity is low. Also wished for even more prosperity from Hillier Dukedom. Thanks you, I am finished. As Lunaria was deep in thought, Claude's congratulation fest also stopped. This is really an issue, Lunaria thought. With the other's identity being that high, how can her male self get the chance to see them? They won't directly beat me to death on sight, right? Never mind, let's not think about this first. Lunaria shook her head and continued to watch the mature lady in the picture describing the various things in Hillier Dukedom. This type of information is next to priceless for Lunaria. Built from wood, a sword practice field up to several thousand meters in size has several knight statues, There was even sword techniques left behind by geniuses born in Hillier dukedom engraved into art adorning the place. In the empty field, there was a handsome young man with short blonde hair sitting cross-legged, with both eyes closed and an area of silence around him. But, to the people who knows this young man well, would also know that he was not as calm as he appeared. More likely, he is probably in confusion and panic mode. I, Claude Hillier, grandson of the Duke, possessing the honor code of the night, has never sullied any person since birth. Claude chanted repeatedly to himself, as if trying to calm himself. With his heart in a tangle, that powerless repeating was the best he could do to explain his actions to himself. Facing that beautiful young lady, no, facing that angel of a lady, I am definitely falling in love, to the point where I could not control my own actions when I saw that she was being harassed by another person. Claude placed his right hand over his heart, felt the unsteady beating of his heart and shook his head. No. The most unforgivable thing is, I actually hard to express. As a commanding officer in the Hillier dukedom army, he dares to admonish those under his command, and he dares to question those higher in command, never fearing his foes, but in this thing, he felt fear. I actually touched that lady's. If Leah tells what I did to her, how would I have any face left to see that young lady? Please hear this prayer with everything I, Claude, have to offer with this life of mine. Please do not let her say it, even if she has to swallow the words. Please don't tell her. Chapter 10. Marry her. What are you thinking of, Claude, young master? A voice echoed in the empty sword training field. The person who spoke was an old person with white hair, but with a body straight as a battle-hardened veteran soldier, looking like an unsheathed sword standing there. Loud Jerry, grandfather. No, it's just I. Editor. Hi, Claude said with words stuck in his throat, feeling that no matter what he said, he would be making excuses for himself. After all, that kind of thing did happen. Loud Jerry coughed, clearly feeling the reason for Claude's turmoil in his mind, so he said in a strict and deep-toned voice. Extremely shameful, Claude. Yes, I really did a really shameful thing. Claude did not argue, but stood up with his head drooping, like a student who had done something wrong. Loud Jerry shook his head and sighed. An honorable knight can still make mistakes, and sometimes making a mistake is unavoidable. Even in our glorious world, the once holy sage king also walked the wrong road because of his emotions, so there is no need to tear yourself over this. Since you know what you did wrong, that is good, but deeply punishing yourself over it to the point of no return is a mistake upon a mistake. It marks the downfall of an honorable knight. Claude, young master, fixing your mistakes is the smarter choice to make. Claude listened to Loud Jerry's words, and showed deep thinking in his eyes. The originally drooping head started to rise again. Looks like this young man's comprehension isn't too bad, Loud Jerry thought, and let out a warm smile. Then he put a hand on Claude's shoulder and said in a lowered voice, "Besides, if you still feel like you cannot make it up to that young lady, then just marry her and take responsibility. No need for this your fault my fault. Ads by Pub Fuchama. Marry her?" Exclamation mark. Claude's head instantly fantasized her absolute beauty, and his heart started to beat like a galloping horse. No, not like this. I have a fiancée already, and that lady has yet to wake up, so talking about her behind her back like this is disrespectful behavior. Seeing that his bait failed to work, Loud Jerry concealed his somewhat vulgar smile and coughed once, saying, Then let's first put this matter aside. I have already reported this matter to the Duke, and he wishes to find out more about the background of this girl before making any decisions." Claude nodded his head in agreement, but he still had some caution. "If that lady is a princess of the enemy nation, then what do we do?" This guess wasn't without its merits, because Loud Jerry had already hinted at this possibility back in the forest. Only, at that time, both Leo and Claude was too caught up in the matter and didn't comprehend his meaning, but now that Claude has calmed down, he naturally also thought of this issue. This thing. Loud Jerry opened his mouth, about to say something, but a sudden set of footsteps came rushing into the sword practice field, and along with it was Lee's urgent calls. "Loud Jerry elder, Something's wrong. Lunaria's sister says her head hurts. It could be that her head has been injured earlier, Leah said as she came in front of the two. Loud Jerry answered before Claude said, "Let's talk as we walk." Yes. Duke's residence, a structure that took tens of kilometers in area, with beautiful landscape inside, fake mountains and a bamboo forest along with pavilions and kiosks that dotted the place. There was even an established shopping street where servants and branch families made deals, so lively that it was like a small city in itself. Ads by Pub Future. At this moment, in the core courtyard of the Duke's residence, three shadows walked at a fast pace. Novelbinat. So, this beautiful miss is called Lunaria, but she has no memories of her own past. Loud Jerry recounted what Leah just described while a barely detectable ray of light flashed through his eyes. Claude, on the other hand, walked even faster and said urgently, "Loud Jerry grandfather, now is not the time to consider this. While we are taking out time speaking about this, Miss Lunaria is still enduring her headache." Looking at Claude's worried looks, Leah, who was following behind them, became pale-faced and gloomy, and other than the guards standing on the sides, no one else saw this change. After turning a final fork in the walkway, Loud Jerry and the other two came to where Lunaria was placed at, which was the honored guest area, designed to house visiting dukes and people of even statuses. Arriving at the door, Leah walked in first and gently said, "Lunaria little sister, I brought Loud Jerry grandfather, how are you?" Lee's sentence turned into a question at the end, because looking at the girl who was invigorated and in high spirits, she could not find a single place that was wrong with her. Lunaria looked at the three who suddenly entered through the door with a stupefied expression, and instantly thought, not good, but oh well, what's done is done. Lunaria crossed her heart and slowly put down the black rock in her hand, looking like nothing had happened. She stood up and bowed respectfully. "The person behind Lady Leah must be my savior, right? I am grateful from the bottom of my heart." Suddenly, a unique and sweet fragrant scent wafted towards the three. Claude suddenly experienced the feeling of his heart thumping like a galloping horse yet again. Leah also froze on the spot, then asking with some hesitation, "Your headache?" "Thank you, Miss Leah, but after I rested a while, the pain went away. Also, if you can you tell me the names of these two sirs?" Lunaria gracefully asked, then looked toward Claude and Loud Jerry, with a light and soft smile on her face, causing the galloping in Claude's heart to intensify. Oh yeah." Leah just now recovered, and hurried with the introductions. "This here is the Duke's grandson, ranked number 1 amongst all the youth from several countries, and Kilden, army breaker, level bandit leader by himself, called the number 1 genius in 100 years, Claude Hillier, young master,